Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. We've got people joining us from all over, so all time zones apply. My name's Tyler Cormier. I'm from MBA Prep School. We're brought to you today by GMAT Club. I'm going to be also introducing in a second my co-founder, Chris Aitken. This is part of a series that GMAT Club is doing, and as part of that series, I wanted to let you guys know up front that GMAT Club's running a giveaway where you can win GMAT Club tests. To enter that, you just have to like the video, post a comment, and check the link in the description. We'll be also offering some other freebies as we go through today's presentation. And today we're going to talk about the process of applying to business school. And you'll hear me talk about it as a marathon, and we're going to be talking about the steps because just like preparing for a marathon, you can't show up the day of the race and hope to make it to the finish line. You have to start well in advance, and that's the point that I'm going to make. And what MBA Prep School operates as a coach in that analogy. We have an elite team of admissions counselors. We work one-on-one with folks who are applying, and your hope is that you're only going to apply to business school once. This is a marathon. You only want to run once, so you want to give it your absolute best. And as coaches, we're going to make sure your performance is outstanding. And in order to do that, there's a lot of different things that we can do to help you. Today's we're going to start by helping you understand this whole process, start to finish. We're also going to demo MBA Prep School Digital, and a lot of people are using apps these days. You can think of MBA Prep School Digital as sort of the ultimate app for training and setting strategy and executing on that strategy as an MBA applicant. In order to do that, I'm going to be turning it over to Christopher J. Aitken. He's going to take you through our MBA Prep School digital platform, and he and I will go back and forth between the presentation and the demo of our website. So, in fact, why don't I just let Chris introduce himself, and we'll get into the presentation and get rolling. We'll also have a Q&A at the end of the session, give you guys a chance to ask some questions. Hope you have some good ones. So let me introduce you, Chris. Chris and I have known each other for many years, dating back to our days as a consultant. You'll see he has a much cooler accent than me. He's from Australia, and if I can get the technicals right, I'll turn it over to Chris.
Thanks, Tyler. Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you. As Tyler said, I'm Chris Aitken, one of the co-founders, and what I'm going to show you is a set of free resources that you'll have access to that will show you every step of the site. So basically, Tyler is going to talk through some of the what you need to do, and then I'm going to address, show you some of the tools that we make available to people to help you how to do it and help you put your best foot forward. So Tyler, why don't we jump straight in?
Great. Okay, Chris, do we have this? You've seen the slideshow presentation?
We do, yeah.
Okay, great. So 5 steps to being accepted to your dream school. There are many more than 5 steps, but we're going to really start from the beginning and, as I said, go through the different aspects of building your strategy, executing on that strategy, and compared it to a marathon first. I've already talked to you a little bit about what MBA Prep School is going to do to help. One of the things is you haven't done this before unless you're a reapplicant. So we're going to give you a step-by-step work plan. We're going to provide videos and tools, information. We've got over 35 videos, over 100 tools, templates, exercises, basically everything that an applicant needs to build an outstanding personal application that really puts your best foot forward. Of course, we offer one-on-one consulting as well if you want to work with a private coach. So those steps that I talk about, you know, in an ideal world, you'll be starting this process at least a year before those deadlines. And you'll see why I recommend that in a moment. But in some ways, this whole process and plan was inspired by a conversation that I had with a Harvard Business School admissions officer when I was just starting out as an admissions counselor, admissions consultant. And he said that, you know, an HBS application actually starts, you know, 3 or 4 years before the deadlines. And what he meant by that is that the choices that you're making, the things that you achieve over especially the sort of, you know, critical first 3 or 4 years of your professional experience, but, you know, let's take it all the way back to college. All of those things come together in a great application, not just the Harvard Business School, but any of the business schools out there. They're going to look for that synthesis, that big picture. And given a year, though, of focus work, or more than a year, you really can build a great foundation for your application. I recently started working with one client who was a sophomore in college. He wanted a really long, sort of a long preparation process, and so there's really it's never too soon to start applying. About the 6 to 12 month period, and that would be, let's say, if you're planning on applying not for entry this fall but the following fall, we're right into that phase right now. You're building out your capabilities. We'll talk about what some of those capabilities are, things that are going to be really important when you get to work with your application, that you already have certain skills, certain aspects of your story in place, and that you're really ready to for that starting gun. The starting gun happens about 3 to 6 months before your applications. This is where you're formulating a strategy. And, you know, right now in the United States, at least, there's everybody's talking about elections, and there's campaign managers working furiously to help the candidates formulate a communication strategy, or what in political terms is a platform and, you know, a brand. So strategy formulation is in some ways knowing what your identity is going to be in this process. What do you want these admissions officers? What are the most important things you want these admissions officers to know about you by the time they finish your application? That's strategy formulation. Of course, execution. You know, it comes down to the application itself. You know, there are specific elements that you've got to put together in your package. That would include a resume, your reference letters, your essays, of course, and even the application forms. There's short answers and things there which give you a chance to tell your story. All those tools are at your disposal. So in the execution phase, we're going to really focus on making sure you score every point available. And then, of course, there's the sort of last mile. That's what we're in the middle of right now, by the way, with our round 1 clients. Tomorrow is the Wharton deadline. We've just been through a series of deadlines. The deadlines for business schools these days are running from about first week of September to first week October for the round 1 deadline. You may already know this, but there's a round 2 deadline and even a round 3 deadline. The round 2 deadline typically happens about the first week of January, and then round 3 in sort of the March-April timeframe. So that's the last mile, and we'll talk about that. So foundations building, you know, put broadly to speak, this is where you're preparing to apply, and there are some things that you should be doing at this phase. Self-assessment. You know, oftentimes, you know, I work with folks who haven't had a moment to just sit back and reflect on what the heck has happened since college. What have they achieved? What's important to them? What are their career goals? This all, again, has to do with that brand building, that identity, you know, who you want these admissions officers to see when they see you on paper, and hopefully that will correspond to what they see when you walk in to an interview months later. Relationship building is very important. There's a lot of relationships that count when you're applying to business school. The most important 2 relationships are going to be your references and, you know, most of the schools are requiring 2 reference letters. So you need to be thinking, a year or more in advance. Who are my mentors? Who are the 2 people that are going to support me and be advocates? Because these days it's not just kind of an arm's length, Tyler worked for us from, X date to X date. His job description is fill in the blank. That's not enough to get you into a top business school these days. You need folks that are your advocates. We need folks that are actually fighting for you. So think about those relationships. Who are those folks going to be? Career planning and research. I mean, at the end of the day, an MBA is a stepping stone. You need to know, and admissions officers are going to want to know what your career plan is. How does the MBA fit into this larger vision you have about what you want to achieve? This is a chance to strengthen your candidacy too. We have a DING diagnostic, and this is where you can do a self-assessment, identify red flags in your candidacy, and we go a step further, of course. We give you specific prescriptions for addressing things that might cause you problems down the line: a low GPA, a low GMAT score, lack of leadership outside of work. There's several things that might stand in your way. If you've got a year or more to work with, you're going to be able to concentrate on strengthening your candidacy, so you can actually change the game, not just play it. School research. One of the things that first round applicants run into, and you need to be aware of this now, schools aren't in session until first week of September, etc. So if you haven't done a school visit, you're not going to be able to do that unless you've planned for it, several months in advance. But more than that, researching schools is incredibly important. Talk to current students, talk to alumni, visit the school if at all possible. The more I've seen a direct correlation over the years, the more engaged and knowledgeable the applicant is, the more successful the applicant is. So school research is a very important process, and you have to be able to do your due diligence and build a case for why this school makes sense. And of course, hey, we're on the GMAT Club. You got to get the GMAT done, or the GRE. The standardized tests are very important these days. Scores are trending higher and higher, so you've got your work cut out for you there. And we can talk a little bit more about that later. All right, before we move on to the kind of second phase of this process, I'm going to turn it over to Chris. He's going to show you some of the MBA Prep School digital platform, specifically the elements that are related to preparing to apply. And again, think of this as a complete program, step by step, that you just follow 1, 2, 3, 4, that will get you to, of course, to the starting gate of this marathon we talked about, but you'll be ready to run the marathon, give your best race possible. So let me share Chris's screen. He's going to be actually showing you a live demonstration of a free MBA Prep School digital website that's built for applicants like you. And let me see. Hopefully, you're seeing Chris's screen now.
Yeah, I think you are. So thanks, Tyler. And just before I dive into this, also, if you have questions, for those of you that are listening to this live, then please post them, and we'll attempt to answer them during the course of today's webinar. So as Tyler said, we offer a complete sort of beginning to end online program, the core version of which you can access for free if you go to mbaprepschool.com/GMAT Club. Just down here on the right, I'm just going to show you quickly an overall approach to the plan. So this first module of Prepare to Apply that I'm going to show you in a second sort of corresponds to some of the things Tyler was just talking about. So how do you get yourself ready 6, 12 months before you apply? Once you've gone that, then we're going to talk about how do you set your application strategy, which is in effect, how are you going to separate yourself? How are you going to differentiate yourself from the thousands of people that are very qualified that you're competing with? And there are a number of things we'll show you as to how to do that. Obviously, understanding why you're making this large investment in business school. So in effect, setting out both your near-term and long-term career goals and where you're trying to go with your life. We help you think through that. How you then select schools that make sense given the career goals you're attempting to achieve, and given the understanding of what are the gaps you have in your knowledge, skills, networks, and experiences. So we help you think through school selection that goes beyond just looking at the rankings. Then a little bit later on, when we come into the final steps, we'll show you through how to execute world-class resumes and application forms that really help tell your story to the MBA admissions committee. Obviously, the all-important essay section, and we have quite a lot of material there. And then how do you make the most of your reference letters? And then a little later on, for our premium members, we also offer additional information around interviews and around how do you tell effective stories. But coming back to this first module that Tyler showed you, in terms of this prepare to apply, so as Tyler was saying earlier, this is in the early stages, and one of the most important things is understanding what are the different things you could do to strengthen your profile. So how are you going to stand out? And so what we offer is we offer a video that walks you through all kind of steps to sort of assess your own profile and understand how an admissions officer would view you. We have a complete transcript and then some specific next steps. So the DING diagnostic that Tyler talked about, beginning to create an action plan of how you're going to execute. And then for our premium members, we also offer downloadable tools that will help with every step of what we've laid out. So in short, each step of the way, we've laid out a work plan. We've laid out some videos and transcripts for our free members. And then for our premium members, you can also access some additional downloadable tools, exercises, and resources to really help you as you go along. And in this prepare to apply mode, it's about getting started, getting your action plan together, understanding how you're going to strengthen your profile, beginning to think about your career planning and how you're going to reach out to potential references, understanding what is it that comes to building a powerful application, and then deciding round and some early target schools. So with that, Tyler, I'll hand back to you for the next step.
Great, thank you, Chris. So next step is the capabilities building, and what you're going to concentrate on at this phase. This is time to sort of start narrowing your school list, and these days we're seeing that folks apply to about 3 or 4 schools in one round, and some of the more ambitious folks then will apply to 2 or 3 in the second round. Guys, if you don't know this, take a look at the acceptance rates. This is a very competitive process. Top 10 business schools in the U.S. at least are accepting only about 15% of those folks who apply. So it's really important that you understand schools beyond those, sort of rankings, though. What are you looking for in the business school experience? Do research. I laugh because every year I work with folks, for instance, from the private equity space, and they know how to do research. They can tear apart a company from the cement foundation all the way through. But then it comes to business school, and they have very superficial reasons for applying. They do very little research, and I make the point to them: this is the most important investment you're going to make, probably in at least in the next few years. Do your due diligence. Choose schools that really make sense or get you where you want to go. That includes visiting those schools. Remember, we're in the 6 to 12 month phase, so you're not officially working on that application yet. Visiting schools, go take a look. Get on campus if at all possible. I have clients that fly from India to visit schools, so there's certainly no excuse if you're in the United States for not carving out some time to visit schools. This will be it'll be well worth it from a lot of angles. Improve your writing skills. You may not have written a paper since university. It's a good idea to be reading and writing and kind of limbering up those writing muscles. Study the typical essay questions. Although the questions change and there's some variations, you see some trends, some patterns, some classic questions. So the career goals question, Chris and I have both mentioned, you're going to have to answer that question at one time or another, whether it's in the essays or in the interview. Leadership stories, that will display your capabilities as a leader. Be thinking through those. Your career story, the kind of classic, tell me about yourself, walk me through the resume. You can start to write notes in a journal. Start to there are books out there with successful essays. I have mixed feelings about those, but you want to get a sense of get a sense of the game you're about to be playing, especially if you haven't written a paper since college. Sign up for online accounts and news feeds, guys. This is a lot of this is an information battle. We've talked about it. Visiting schools, talking to students, talking to alumni, keeping attuned. You know, it'd be tragic if the school is visiting your city and you missed out because you hadn't put your email in their online, in their online system. So take advantage of these opportunities to meet and greet, and hopefully, shake hands, smile at an admissions officer. Those things, I tell you, they can pay off, even if your candidacy is not the most brilliant. A well-placed handshake and smile, and somebody who remembers you can suddenly take you from being this two-dimensional piece of paper to, oh yeah, I remember John from that school, that presentation we did in New York. So those are some of the elements of capabilities building. Strategy formulations, we're going to really get into sort of telling your story, and but before we do that, I'm going to hand it back over to Chris once again to take you through a few other steps and kind of transition us. We're going to be transitioning into sort of the actual work of applying. Chris, you there?
I am now. Sorry, I was on mute. So picking up where Tyler left off, coming into this application strategy section, in terms of understanding your schools, it's also understanding the profiles of what they're looking for and understanding how you're going to differentiate yourself. So again, we have videos and tools and things that will help you, specific exercises to help you understand how you're going to stand out from this crowd. Similarly, understanding how to position your career story, for example, which is what you've achieved so far, how you do that in the context of what the specific schools are looking for, and beginning to understand where your capabilities currently are, particularly in the area of leadership. Most business schools are particularly focused on leadership capabilities and being able to demonstrate what you've already done both at work and in your community service and volunteer and other outside of work activities to show leadership. So as you're looking to sort of build these capabilities, you're going to be looking across things you've achieved, where your strengths are, how you position your story career-wise, and how you position some of your leadership capabilities. So Tyler, with that, I'll hand back to you.
Thanks, Chris. So what Chris was showing you there, points of difference, career story, leadership capabilities, all of these elements are fundamental to the ultimate application that you're going to be creating. So what we do with our clients, before we even pull out an essay question or get serious about application forms or references, we are taking them through a very mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive, there's an acronym for that, MISI, look into their background, into their strengths, into their stories. So for those of you who are students of strategy, positioning is about differentiation. How are you going to stand out from thousands of other folks? You may stand out based on the industry that you work in or what you studied in school. You might stand out because you've been very involved in a community service organization. You've emerged as a leader. You may stand out because you have a very interesting set of life experiences, a life perspective that other folks don't have. Everyone has gifts. Everybody can contribute something unique to the class. So this is the process of either asking yourself or working with a coach like the ones at MBA Prep School about how can I stand out. That is in essence the strategy formulation. There's some fundamental questions that you need to answer on your own, or we need to answer together if we're working with you at this stage, right? What are you going to be able to contribute to that MBA community, right? What do you sort of the classic, what do you bring to the table? What are your standout leadership accomplishments? And not just sort of what are they, but how did you achieve what you achieved? Working with a team, or coming up with a vision and fulfilling that vision, those leadership capabilities. What about other accomplishments, beyond leadership, things that you're proud of, awards you've won, or papers you've written, or research that you've done, and those sort of life experiences, those other interesting things. I'm working with a client now who plays jazz, was a jazz conductor at one point in college. He grew up all over Latin America, so he's got some interesting cross-cultural experiences. He's been doing some cool work in litigation consulting, right? So I'm looking for all of those different elements of his story, and we're asking ourselves the question, okay, well, how can these things benefit your classmate? What are you going to be bringing to the table that not everybody else can offer? That, in its essence, that plus the career goals is really the strategy. Career goals are extremely important, guys. I know it's tough to think like to take a step out of the race you're in right now at work, but thinking about the future, thinking about short term, what do you want to do post MBA? What's the vision? What's my dream job? We really feel like this is an opportunity to set yourself apart from those folks who haven't developed their career goals, who don't quite know. They know that going to an MBA would be cool. They know they've seen other people succeed because they've gone to business school, but it's absolutely critical and important that your career goals make sense, that connect the dots between what you've achieved so far and what you're going to achieve, what you want to achieve in the future. All of this is also an important element of your application strategy. The resume is a great starter tool. I like to think, right? You've got these key elements. You've got to put it on a page, so this forces you to really make some choices. Okay, these are the transactions I'm going to feature from my investment banking job. Here are the moments that I really feel like I made a difference at work. I want to talk about my community service with this education non-for-profit, right? The resume is when you really start to transition from strategy and application. The resume is a great tool to force you to make those strategic choices. Your personal statement, again, this could be kind of the career story, but going back to some of the earlier biographical elements. Again, we're not quite into execution mode yet, but we're getting ready, right? And we're actually looking at the application. What are these guys going to ask me? What do they want? When are the deadlines? Just kind of familiarizing yourself. That's all of that sort of getting ready, getting you to the starting line. And I think this is a phase 2 where you can start choosing your references. We talked before about how important those references are going to be to this process. You should be soft asking, 6 or so months before, hey, do you think I could look to you for a reference? I'm kind of looking into my options. I want to go to business school. What do you think? This is a very competitive process. You can let those references know. Try to start recruiting your team, right? They're part of your team during this strategy phase. All right, before we get to execution, though, I'm going to pass it back to Chris, who will show you a few more of the tools. By the way, I was going to mention to you that the MBA Prep School website by creating a free account, you're going to have access to all of the videos that Chris is showing you. And so all this stuff is free, guys. There's no reason that you need to go it alone. You'll have access to the videos. For $49 more, you'll have access to the complete site, all the tools, the templates. We've taken, my 10 years of experience, but the cumulative experience, 30 or 40 years of accumulated experience with the other coaches that contributed to these tools, and put them together. We've sort of figured out what you need to do and when you need to do it. And so I hope you go to mbaprepschool.com/GMAT Club. There's a free sign up there, and you'll have access to the stuff tomorrow, and you can start your Prepare to Apply program, assuming you're you're a year out. If you're getting ready to round two, you'll jump right into application strategy and career goals. So mbaprepschool.com/GMAT Club. That should be posted with the video. Chris, why don't you take them through some of those tools for application building?
Sure. So a couple of things that Tyler mentioned related to career goals, and so understanding your career purpose, so where you're trying to go and how you're going to be able to communicate that. And again, we have sets of videos and transcripts as well as some specific activities, and for the premium members, some workbooks and tools to help you. Coming through that purpose and definition of your career, your dream job, into what are the specific capabilities that you need. So understanding, in effect, what are the skills and the knowledge and the leadership experiences and the relationships that will help you be successful. So walking you through how do you assess all of that, and how do you take action to put together what is in effect your career plan, of which the MBA is one step. And so when schools are asking you questions like, why do you want an MBA from fill in the name of the school, the question is, how do you then describe where the MBA fits in this longer-term career action plan that you've got? Moving beyond the career goals, Tyler talked a bit about this, the importance of selecting schools. So we give you very specific materials that will help you think through, what the right schools are for you and how to do effective diligence on those schools, and to understand how to assess what are those schools looking for. So understanding not just where you would fit, but what's the right fit for you. And then Tyler also touched on the resume, which we'll come back to in a little while, but we give you very specific materials and templates that will help you understand what is an effective MBA application resume, which is quite different to, in many ways, to a job resume. So understanding how do you build a resume that's going to be effective for the purposes of getting you into an MBA school. So Tyler, back to you, and we'll keep going from there.
Great, Chris. Yeah, just to stop an execution, we're getting a few questions, and then, by the way, please feel free to ask questions. We'll also take 15 minutes or so and cover some of these, but just a couple of good ones that came in. Somebody asked, how do you base your choice of references? So, with business school references, it's very important that your references know and have seen you operate in a professional setting. So college professors, not, generally speaking, not going to be a good choice for your references. That they would like at least one of your references to be a direct supervisor, right? This makes sense. This is an individual who can answer the key questions business schools are going to ask. Right now, there's two classic ones. And in fact, many schools have gone to a standard set of reference questions. The first one is, how does this candidate compare to his or her peers? How does he or she stand out, right? So your direct supervisor is going to be able to answer that question. And the second question is constructive feedback. Tell us about a time you provided the candidate with constructive feedback. How did he or she respond? That's that. If you think about it, lots of times we'll have work relationships, but you have to have kind of a little bit closer relationship before somebody will sit you down and say, hey, here's something that I think you should work on constructively. So that's going to be an important thing. So, the direct supervisor is a practical matter, is choosing a reference. But, I mentioned this again, but it's so important. I'm going to say it again. Like, you're looking for an advocate, right? A cheerleader, somebody who is going to say, hey, Chris Aitken is one of the top 5%, young consultants that I have had the pleasure of working with over my, 15 years in management consulting, right? You're looking for somebody who can give you that level of endorsement and then back it up with real examples, right? So business schools, if you just stop there with a big claim about how great Chris is, but you can't break it down and say, hey, it's his communication skills. People, his teammates listen to him and look up to him. Here's a quick example of on the job achievement that he had, and again, I'm probably going too long on this reference thing, but it is so important, guys. Look for folks that are going to really back you up. How do you coach on school selection? Well, we have, Chris showed it to you very quickly, but again, back to sort of due diligence, really understanding schools. We've actually built a step-by-step program. You should have these questions answered, and and you can determine the school fit based on your career goals. Make sure that they have the various resources and distinctive assets and resources, a great alumni network in the industry and the job function that you want to work in, that the academic program is designed in a way that you'll enjoy. Harvard Business School, classic case study, sit in the class, talk through problems. Some people love to learn that way. Some people love experiential learning, consulting practicums. Each school has kind of their own unique take on the MBA. So you need to figure out what that is and which one fits with you. Question on essays. Chris, you want to say something?
I was just going to say, I have up on the screen now, I'm just showing to the audience some of the tools that we have specifically around the school selection. So some of the specific things that we offer around how to think through schools, how to do diligence on each of these schools. So we have particular activities and things that you would want to do. And then really importantly, how to dive into what we call fit qualities, which are those sort of the specific things that each school is looking for that makes them stand out. And so again, if you go to mbaprepschool.com/GMAT Club, you'll be able to sign up for a free account and access these videos and the transcripts that go along with it, which I think will help answer some of the questions that you've got. So Tyler, why don't you take presentation control back and we'll go into the execution.
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. And we're going to get to those essays, guys. I know that's what's on everybody's mind. The essay questions. Jump back to my presentation here. Right, look, it all comes down to execution. You've developed this beautiful strategy. You have a clear idea in mind about what you want these admissions officers to know, what you want to say in your applications, right, in a holistic way. Now it's time to say it, right? Writing your essays. Chris, as you might expect, this is the thing that most candidates are most worried about. What am I going to write? What am I going to say? How should I feature? So we've broken this process down into kind of an outlining phase. Well, so of course a brainstorming creative phase, then an outlining phase. We've really covered what makes for a brilliant career goals essay. How do you tell a leadership story in a concise 400 or 500 words so that your leadership abilities, your leadership style, your leadership achievements show through? How do you answer the what will you contribute, right? It's not something you've probably been sitting around thinking about on the weekends up until this point. What can I bring to an MBA community? What do I bring to the table? How am I different? Well, we'll give you examples of both how to sort of think about and approach that question, but really also examples in the templates and tools of what other folks have written. So, right, you might think, oh wow, you get an example of how somebody started a dance club in college and her interest in dance, and that'll think, well, I didn't start a dance club, but I did start a music club. So we provide you like little examples and things to help you with your brainstorming. And so the essay portion of this is challenging, but if you take it one step at a time, you're absolutely going to end up with essays that you're truly proud of. Collaborating with your references. I use this word collaborate, and again, some of your competition out there are going to haphazardly choose the references, send the schools those references emails, and it'll be completely hands off, guys. I don't think that works anymore. You need to make sure your references understand what this process is all about, what their role is, but more importantly, what you want them to feature. Why not say, hey, my reference Jim. Hey, Jim, here's what I'm trying to do in this application overall. I really want to show off my analytical capabilities, and you and I worked on project X, and I think you could showcase those for me. I started that after hours club because you and I talked about how folks weren't interacting and socializing in a way. So, would love for you to write about that in your reference. Give them ideas. Hopefully you're not put in a position that you have to write the reference letter for them, but you can create outlines, talking points, reference guides, we call them, and we provide you with a template that you can use with your references and sort of build in all those great ideas and give them a communication strategy too. And then sort of how their stories and examples are going to fit in with your big picture too. So a lot to be said about collaborating with references. In MBA Prep School, we provide specific tools you can use with your references. Assembling and submitting the paperwork, right? There are short answers, guys. You haven't probably opened up one of these applications, but sometimes schools will have an opportunity in the application forms to do short answers and things, so you'll have some work to do there. And I'm going to stop before we get to admissions interviews, because that's if you don't know, by the way, interviewing in business school for most of the schools is by invitation. Right? You put in the paper application. They go, wow, we want to meet, Nancy. We're going to invite her in for an interview, or tell her about it, when we're coming to London or Dubai or Mumbai, and doing an interview in her home city. So we hope to meet Nancy. Let's talk. We've again back to the essays. We've got some really powerful tools there to help you. And Chris will take you through a quick run through of some of those tools for essay writing.
So thanks, Tyler. So in terms of some of the tools, I'll come back to the resume in a second. The first thing that Tyler talked about was the essays. And what we do, and this gets to one of the questions that somebody asked in terms of, if you had to prepare for generic essays ahead of their release, which essays would you recommend? Two thoughts on that. One would be to study the essays of the current and prior year for the schools that you're interested in, but also to then look at the different categories that we've laid out for you here on the MBA Prep School digital site. So we provide an overview of the essays. In effect, we give you a sort of a writing 101 course. So we're sort of showing you how to approach some of these questions. And the one, we give you some very specific tips on how to choose the specific stories you want to tell. So these essays are an opportunity for you to tell stories about the things you've done, the experiences you've had, the impact you've had in your organizations and in your community. And so we help you think through what are the most effective stories to tell. And in terms of classifying the essays, the generic categories are leadership story essays. So tell me about a time where you've had a leadership experience. Career goals essays, sort of what are your short-term and long-term career goals. And career story, which is what have you accomplished so far. And so for each of these, again, we provide short videos that give you a specific overview of that particular question. And then we give you specific things you can do to actually not only approach that question, but also score your own essay. So score the content and the ideas that you've got. Career stories are the things you've achieved. Why our school? So not just why do you need an MBA, but why specifically do you want to come and get an MBA from our particular school? And as Tyler alluded to earlier, it's such a competitive process that you need to be very clear about what are the particular resources that you're drawn to of that school. It can't just be rankings. It can't just be the prestige of the brand. It needs to be things that are specific about that school's resources, its facilities, its research capabilities, its faculty, its classes, its learning style, etc. And we help you think through all of that. And then most importantly, what will you contribute? So what do you bring to the party? In effect, why is the class richer and more powerful for your future classmates by having you in that class than if they give that precious seat to somebody else? And so again, we give you materials that will help you think through and then score your own responses on that. And then we give you some tips on how to get started. So a lot of tools around the essays. Similarly, a lot of tools around the resumes. So how do you build powerful resumes? And finally, the most overlooked part of the application for a lot of people are the application forms. And yet these are in many cases the first thing that the admissions reader actually reads about you. And there are many schools give you opportunities to further differentiate yourself even within the application forms. So we give you some specific guidelines on how to approach those. So every step of this is about how do you differentiate yourself. And then finally, Tyler alluded to how do you select references, and then how do you support those references. And so we give you some guidance as to how to choose the references that will best support your story, and then how to build these sort of 1 to 2 page reference guides. And if you're a premium member, we give you access to our templates around that will help the reference understand how they can best support your story, how they can best advocate for you so that you end up intriguing the admissions office and being invited to interview. So with that, Tyler, back to you.
Yeah, guys, we're going to start kind of wrapping it up. So make sure if you have a couple of questions for the Q&A that those get posted. We're seeing those over chat. And, I think that, we've thrown a lot of information at you today, and it's kind of like probably feels a bit overwhelming. And I think that the important thing to note here is the GMAT, that test or the GRA that you obsessed about or are obsessing about. That's just the start, guys. The application process. This is the true test of whether you're going to get into business school or not. And although you won't remember all of the different steps we talked about, what I do hope you remember is that there is a process that you can follow. It's a process that we've used with clients for 10 years now. And the reason we have 80, 90% plus success rates is that a lot of this comes down to having a great strategy and then executing it flawlessly, start to finish. And you don't have to, this is why you remember that slide, 12 plus months. You don't do this stuff overnight, 3 or 4 weeks before you apply. So hopefully that comes through clearly today. This is a marathon like we talked about. You've got to train for it. You've got to have a clear plan for succeeding. And that's, I wanted to give you the overview. And yes, of course, have you sitting there going, are you serious? I have to do all of this stuff? Yes, you do, but you don't have to do it in one night. You can do it a few hours a week, following a step-by-step program like the one that we've created, and you'll be very proud of the application you submit at an absolute minimum by the time you've gone through the MBA Prep School program. Of course, the reason admissions consultants exist, folks like us, is sometimes you need a coach. If you're going to start a workout plan, maybe working with a personal trainer can make sure that you don't waste time or take the wrong steps. That's what an admissions consultant does, and I think probably that's the other thing that you're gaining from today. Sometimes having a guide is a great resource. But kind of to that last mile may seem quite far away right now. So I'll only spend a second on it and then answer some questions. In that last mile, you're proofing your application. You're getting it in early, right? You didn't start 3 weeks before and pulling 3 all-nighters to try to get this application done. You're done ahead of the game. Make sure those recommendation letters are in. It's tragic if you do all that hard work and the heavy lifting, but your references go, oh, wow, sorry, I'm on vacation this week, and your application gets delayed as a result. So don't make sure that doesn't happen. Take a 2-week vacation. Once you've done this stuff, you're going to be pretty worn out. It's going to be rewarding. It's going to be a rewarding feeling. You're going to feel good about what you submitted, but you're going to probably need a break before you, prepare for the final exam, and that's admissions, the admissions interview, right? This is where it all comes together. I like to say our clients are well ahead of the competition when it comes to the interview, because all these things that we've been doing, application strategy, figuring out what my story is, figuring out how can I contribute and why I want to go to the school, all these things, you're already ready for the interview in a lot of ways. You just have to create the verbal form. You have to be able to conversationally talk about those things, and that can take some work. So that's where preparing for admissions interviews comes in. So I'll let Chris do a quick overview, and we're just probably about 5 minutes away from wrapping up now.
So obviously the whole point of the application is to get yourself to the point where you're invited to an interview, because that's really the final test or the final hurdle. And so we provide, for our premium members, we provide 3 important tools to help you get ready. The first one is understanding the interview. So understanding the structure of the interview, but also what they're trying to get out of it, understanding the dynamics of the interview, and then understanding how in the course of that interview do you prove that you qualify to be at a particular school. And one of the questions that we had in the audience was, for interviews, will your prep be different for different schools? And the answer is yes, insofar as understanding that different schools have different interview formats and different schools will ask and emphasize different questions, but also in that you should be tailoring your messaging to what you have learned through this process is what's important to that school. So the messaging that you would send to Stanford might be different to Harvard or to Wharton. It's not a inauthentic representation of yourself, but it's rather what do you emphasize. And I'm sure Tyler will build on that in a minute. We also then show how do you fit in that particular school. So how are you going to demonstrate in the course of the interview that you have the characteristics that they look for that will help you stand out. And then finally, what are some mechanics in terms of how you can go through and really put your best foot forward on admissions day. So just to be clear, this module is only available to our premium members, but by the time you get to that, the investment in something like this is relatively trivial. So Tyler, back to you, and we'll take all the different questions we've got now.
Great, thank you, Chris. So here's the process. We started with those foundation building. We got ready for this process by building our capabilities and making sure we strengthened our candidacy, put together a strategy, we executed on that strategy, and we crossed the finish line, right? So MBA Prep School is a resource that's there for you. We really do feel strongly that we want to level the playing field, make sure that folks out there all over the world, this is on the web, so everybody can access it. You can access it for free, mbaprepschool.com/GMAT Club. We also have different offers and things that will come out during the year for folks that have engaged with us, and we can be a great resource, guys. So you may have worked with a test prep tutor on the GMAT. Think of us as your resource for mastering and excelling and winning when it comes to the rest of your application. So we'll just cover a few questions and wrap up.
Yeah, so Tyler, the first questions there relates to would you recommend people retake the GMAT if they score 720?
Sure. I'm going to go ahead and, before I do, let me show you this cool slide. There it is. MBA Prep School, mbaprepschool.com. So a question about 720 on the GMAT. And if I can, I'm going to stop presenting and put on my camera.
There we go.
Great. So it's interesting. Just had a client first round. He is an Indian software engineer. Went to a really good program in India. Had a 720 on the GMAT. The more we talk about though, his scores on practice exams were higher than 720. So he felt like he had a higher score in reach. I told him if so, it's worth taking another shot at it. These days you can cancel your score if you don't beat the 720. So in his case, I pushed him to do it. He ended up with a 760. We're both thrilled because he's going to be able to apply sort of the top schools in his range versus the scores where he was just at median. Well worth it. this is the Olympics, guys. Every point counts. Every element of your application counts. GMAT Club is, again, as I said, only one important data point, but it is an important data point. So if you can get that 720 score up without a ton more hours and effort, yes, make that investment.
The next question, Tyler, relates to how old can my referee relationship be? Should it ideally be the current supervisor? Yes, so that current skills are emphasized. But this person is also asking, sort of for the portfolio, one referee from a current company and one from an earlier company, or a different mix?
That's often how it works. As you know, Chris, you'll have your current supervisor, but if you've changed companies, over your 3 or 4 years since graduating from university, a previous supervisor can give a different dimension, you in a different setting, a different type of job, so that if it's been longer though than about 3 or 4 years, you were so early in your career at that stage, I'd have to feel like there was a lot of powerful stories and strengths that would be revealed by that earlier reference before I'd go much further back than that. By the way, guys, if you played a prominent role in an NGO, a nonprofit, there's a high hurdle rate for this, but it can be a good idea to get a reference from somebody who's seen you leading in that community service setting. So oftentimes the community service leadership is crucially important as a way of showing off leadership abilities, because let's face it, in our first 3 or 4 years on the job, we're not always leading the team. We're part of the team. So that was just an add-on question.
Okay.
Anything else?
So just while we wait, so this is the last chance to ask questions, guys. If you have questions, get them in. Tyler, the last question that I've got relates to how easy is it, or how appropriate is it to repurpose content that you've written for one particular school and reuse it in another? And actually, we've got one question after that one as well, and then we'll wrap up.
How is it to repurpose? Yeah, it's definitely a part of this process. That first essay is often the toughest because you're starting from scratch, right? A blank page. Once you've got some material to work with, I'll give you an example with the sort of why our school. Oftentimes your reasons, your learning objectives, how you want to grow, what you want to gain from the MBA program are going to be the same. But each school will have a slightly different set of assets that you can access, right? So oftentimes, when we have a really good, when we work with a client, have a really good first why our school, how does our school contribute to, or what will you gain from our program essay, you can have, slot out some of the, the Stanford specific resources and slot in the Wharton specific resources. So there's definitely a chance to get some leverage, Chris, and repurpose essays.
Great. And then I think the final question we'll take today is, when we talk about leadership qualities, what key components should be emphasized? Yeah,
that's an interesting question, and I think leadership style, leadership capabilities, a little like a fingerprint, right? Chris and I did, it's because leadership is so important, we actually did a leadership capabilities dictionary, and we did some research about leadership, reading about leadership, and different, some folks are their leadership style is sort of shoulder to shoulder, in the trenches with the team, execution, operations. Other people are communicators, visionaries. They're proposing big ideas. Other people are contrarians. They're taking a team that's going this direction and saying, "Hey guys, that's how we've always done it. Why don't we try this out?" So it's really a tough question to answer just generally, Chris, because that's where the self-assessment and thinking about, your leadership experiences and how you lead and what you've been able to achieve help you to see sort of your strengths. But again, this capabilities dictionary that we have on MBAprepschool.com can help you to sort of see, build that style and identity for yourself, and look at some examples and things so you can understand that. It's tricky. It's a tricky process, and that's why working with if you can't work with an admissions consultant, try to work with your friends. They can be extremely helpful as a sounding board. It's very hard to do this process completely on your own, right? From the inside looking out, it's a little bit tough, but interacting with your mentors at work and friends and getting some perspective, that maybe they'll have some insights for you about your leadership capabilities and your other strengths. Guys, I want to thank you for tuning in. I know we've been going for an hour here, provided a lot of information. That's really the point of the video series, is you can take this stuff at your own pace. It's always going to be there on the web. MBAprepschool.com/GMAT Club is a place to start your free account. And all this stuff that we've been talking to you about, you can kind of, okay, this week I'm going to learn a little bit about resumes. Next week I'm going to think about the references. 3 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now, I'm going to think about my essays and go check out the essay module. You can click around and move at your own pace and check things off as you complete it. Get help from a coach. It's just a click of a button away. Also to sort of get a live tutorial session with one of our consultants. I hope we see a lot of you guys on MBAprepschool.com. This is a marathon you're preparing to run, or you may be running already. The tools are useful, of course, whether you're 2 years from applying or 2 weeks from applying. There's a lot of valuable resources that you can pick and choose. Want to thank you, GMAT Club again. Just a reminder, GMAT Club is running a giveaway. You can get those GMAT Club tests that we talked about. You enter the competition by liking this video and posting a comment, and then check the link in the description. And hope to see you guys in the future. Best of luck with your application process. And thank you to Chris for the demonstration of the website. Chris, you want to say goodbye?
Thanks, everybody. Best of luck, and prepare to apply.